the first 1000 Days podcast, the business startup journey with Ivan Sutton.
All right, and thank you everyone for joining me for another episode of the first 1000 Day podcast. And today, I'm really happy to have Heather Sanderson with me. I thought I lost you there for a second. Anyway, I'm glad to have Heather with me, and she's with DenMar Displays. And Heather, thank you for joining me. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Very brief synopsis.
Really brief, like high level stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Trade show displays and exhibits. So anything that helps you brand yourself when you go to a business event.
Very, very cool. You know what? It sounds like everybody that watches this podcast will probably fit into either somebody that could use your services or knows somebody that could use your services. So anyway, I'm going to just chat a little bit about kind of like your early days of running this business. Now, how long have you been running this business?
So unlike most people, yes, I bought the business in 2021 on April Fools, and that was no joke, despite the fact it was in the middle of COVID.
Brave. Okay, so when you took over the business and you bought it out, when you started it, what did you think you could actually bring to the business, and what problem did you think were you convinced needed to be solved in the market?
Yeah, great question. So because it was already an established business, I mean, our whole philosophy was displays and very much focused on the trade show industry. What I brought to it was my marketing background, and the previous owner and I had always worked together for a number of decades previously, and we had a really good symbolic relationship. That just really blended really well. He was a sales and I did marketing. And what I kept saying to him was the things that we could bring to the table that people are always asking us are, anything related to when you go to a business event. So it's business cards, it's promotional items. And we have been asked to do all these kind of things previously, but we never accepted it into our fold. And now we have, and with my marketing background, we do a lot more design than we previously did before. And yeah, that kind of just, those were just the extras that we brought to really be more of a full house service.
Right. So end to end, everything that the person might want, you can provide it.
Basically,
pretty much. Okay. So when you first started doing this, was there anything that you thought that you just assumed, it's gonna work out to be like this? I mean, I've been working for the company for a while. It's going to continue to flow, that you were just wrong about?
Yeah, well, I mean, events in general. I mean, not only did COVID put a big dent and pin into what became trade shows, has really evolved and changed. I mean, unfortunately, trade shows were already starting on the decline of the true traditional business to business trade show. I'm not talking consumer shows. Consumer shows have continued to do great, but it really taught businesses that there was another way to do business other than being at a week-long trade show that you're traveling across the country. Internationally, those shows are still in existence, but the clientele, when we considered that 90% of our population, or business population, is made up of small businesses, that really brought out a whole different way to do business than just going to these shows that they couldn't pay for. Honestly, the time, the money, and the effort that they had just didn't fit into these shows. So I never anticipated that shows in general would be the smallest shows that we're seeing. I kept envisioning, having been brought up in this industry since my dad owned a show, I honestly thought that it was just going to continue the big week-long shows. And as in the end, that's not what we're seeing now.
Amazing how market trends just affect you, right? I mean, was there a point over those first 1000 days, since 2021, that you thought, man, I don't know if I should continue this? Was there ever a moment that you questioned continuing?
I constantly question it. Yeah, and that's why we've had to pivot as much as we have. I mean, and I was glad that we had already most of the infrastructure to be able to do the promotional items, the custom gifts. We already have the equipment, so let's utilize it in a different way. And, we've been given that opportunity. It's not a huge part of our business, but it's still, full encompassing for our services.
Yeah, was there anything that you were not prepared for? You worked for the company before, but was there anything that, I guess, post-COVID that you were just not prepared for?
Yeah, I think I didn't really expect that the trade shows would become quite as small as they have. I already knew that the larger trade shows were dissipating because we were starting to see, shows that used to happen on an annual basis go to, every 2 years, in some cases 3 years as they travel across the country. And now they're happening internationally. So some of those shows are actually 3 and 4 years now. So what the trend is now that is great for us is that we're now smaller shows are going to become the bigger shows now, if that makes any sense. But we're seeing more of the small shows. So things like BizCon and BizX and, vendor fairs, all these kind of shows are now what's driving the smaller businesses. And because it's, cost effective for them, it's not time intensive, it's easier on their budget and their manpower to say, yeah, I'm going to do a half day show. Yeah, that's easy. No problem. I can do
So,
that. And the
so
price
you're
point is perfect for them.
and you're seeing a rise in those smaller shows, and that they're well-attended shows.
They're well attended shows. Yeah. So it's driving business to business, which is great. But now the issue has been instead of me dealing with a lot more corporations, I'm dealing with a lot more solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and smaller businesses. So they've all never been to business events, whether it's networking or these shows. And so they have no idea what they actually need and want. And they have a preconception of, yeah, I think I need all of this. And then when I talk to them, it's like, yeah, you don't need all of this. Let's cut your budget in half and let's see what we can do for you, to give as much of an impact without spending the big dollars.
Well, you're bringing up a really good point about just an interesting thread I'd like to pull on a little bit about trade shows in general for small businesses, solopreneurs, people like mom and pop shops. There's a lot of them, and as you know, this great city, that's really what our focus is on small businesses. But how beneficial would you say going to these? I know this is self-serving as I'm asking the question. I'm realizing, okay, this is for you to dance, right, and tell the story. But in real terms, how beneficial is it for them to attend those shows? And do you actually see them getting a benefit from it? Or do you see people going into these shows and doing it maybe once or twice and then abandoning the shows because it's not beneficial? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's actually a great question. And it really comes back down to do they actually know what they're doing? And so, as one of DenMar's capabilities is we help coach you through that process. So you trade shows have always had kind of a negative connotation, but if you frame in the work that's just another business event, then people look at it differently and they frame it differently. And as a result, you'll actually act differently and you'll have different conversations than if you were like, I'm sell, 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 give it business cards. Those shows are hugely well attended in general. And I would say that because of that, the potential to do business is huge. But if you're going to look the same as everybody else, act the same as everybody else, and talk the same language as everybody else, you're going to lose your clientele and you're going to walk away and say, you know what, that was a waste of time. I'm not doing that again. Yeah. So, one of the things that at least DenMar does is as part of our ongoing pivoting is listen, we'll help coach you through that. Let's talk about body language. Let's talk about verbal language. Are you hitting them at the right key points that you should be talking about so that you're having better conversations? Then you can follow up with people better and then you'll close more sales.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, I learned a few things from because we met at a BizCon event, and of course, this great city is always at the BizCon events. And you taught me a few things about how to get the most out of your space at an event, whether it's a vendor market or a business to business trade show. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because if someone's watching this, I want them to to start thinking through these ideas? Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's really three pillars to a good booth area, and that is function, flow, and focus. So for your function, is it actually doing what you want it to do? The focus, are you giving the right message to the people that are attending? And are you saying the right message? And then the flow is, are you allowing them to come and actually have conversations? So one of the biggest things I see that at any business event is that you have a banner stand and you have a tablecloth with the table, and you have the table in the front of you. And when we talk naturally, there's nothing between the two of you. Instead of using the table as an augmentation to what you're showing or showcasing or your product, or maybe you have brochures or whatever, you're cluttering the table, you're not having it at multi heights. And so people just have no idea what they're looking at. And if you don't have something that's up high, for instance, your logo with a tagline, people are just walking right by and they're not even going to stop and talk to you. So, being inviting, being open, being allowing them to have that conversation with you is automatically going to allow you to have better conversation.
So, and yeah, and I noticed that with your display, I mean, people walk right into your booth area, right? And you actually have a lit backdrop, is
Mhm.
that right? And then everything else is in front of that, and you're able to stand in that space. So I actually feel like I'm stepping into your space as opposed
Mhm.
to standing in front of your space. Fascinating.
Mhm.
What else? What else? I have some ideas about what I see other people doing that I think, well, this is probably why I'm just going to walk by. What else do you see that small businesses should focus on?
Well, they're not stopping people. You're not being inviting, you know. And it's not even so much are you asking them the right questions, because, just have a conversation with these people. If you're not having a conversation, you're never going to know what they want or what they don't need. What are their pain points? So, my trick is everybody who walks by is, what brings you here today? I want to know that, because it'll tell me whether or not it's a good show for me to be at. Because if they come for something completely different, they're coming for the food. Well, they're not going to be for me to
That's
spend
true.
time with,
Yeah,
right?
good point.
You
Good
know,
point.
but you never know what that connection might lead to also, so
Mhm.
unless you are having those conversations, asking them, why are they here? What are their interests? You can't make connections with other people. And 9 times out of 10, the interesting thing is I'm not even at my booth. My booth does its job for itself. If people want to talk to me, they'll drop a card in their box, or they take a card, because I'm introducing other people all the time at the shows, right? So I'm having a conversation with somebody. I go, "Oh, you need to meet this person," right? And then I take them over and introduce them to that person. So, for me, the shows aren't so much for me to gather clients, but to make those great connections. And I think when you frame it in that way, you're gonna just be able to reciprocate way better than if you just have a plan that I'm selling my product and service, and that's it. That's all I'm doing. Because when they're coming to the shows, that's not what they want. You have to
I have a
trust.
I totally, absolutely hear you. And it brings a question to mind. How many people do you think, they spend their money on the trade show booth? They show up, they brought all their stuff, it's all on their table, but they don't know why they're there. I mean, ultimately, I mean, everybody wants to get more business, but there's no strategy for attending. It's almost like I'll attend and see what happens. How many people do you think are in that category?
Oh, about 80% of them. Yeah, yeah. If you don't have any strategy for the booth of why you're there, then why are you there? That's part of the design. That's part of the as I said, the function, the flow, and the focus of it. But it goes a little bit more deep than just that, because honestly, if you have gone to an event and you're not present, and meaning that you're not focused yourself on what you're doing, then, and a case in point, and I don't mean to pick on, the artisan vendors, but, what we often see when you go to a vendor market, for instance, is you might see somebody who's actually creating the product right there. They're so focused on actually creating the product that people are walking by and they haven't even stopped. Instead of using it as a demo opportunity to say, this is how I make my product, they're too busy making the product to really catch the eye of those people who are interested. And so presence is huge.
Wow, fascinating, fascinating. It's almost like you really want to have someone that will teach you. And this is another leading comment here. But if you're going to go to a show, you're spending the money, you should know how to make the best out of the show, how to get the most out of it, right? And I think there are a lot of things that people don't consider when they're going in. They just think, okay, I'm going to go, the show's going to do it for me. And that's it. And they walk out and they think, okay, well, that was kind of okay. I've met some people, but it doesn't get them the maximum yield from that event. So talk to me about DenMar Displays and not just kind of what happens in reality. Sorry, definitely what happens in reality, but how can I be benefited by what you're offering me?
Right. So I have often said, if you're a sales rep on the road, you might be great on the road, but when you're at a trade show, business event, you're terrible. And, there's so many factors of why that is. It might be they're better with one-to-one people, or put them in a crowd and they don't know what they're doing, you know. Some of it's self-confidence because uh, they're just not confident in what they're saying or how they're saying it, or they might be staring at deer headlights, the deer in the headlights kind of thing, where the people just don't get what you're talking about. And so they've just moved on. And, we all know when you give flyers and treats and stuff at the booth, they're just gimmicks. 9 times out of 10, those flyers end up in the garbage pail as they walk outside the door. I'm not taking that with me. So I think the connectivity is where DenMar can really help focus you. Our services, as I said earlier, with the verbal language, the body language, are you presenting yourself in a way that people are actually understanding what you're saying and doing and what your product is? You got to remember, 90% of the population are visual people. If you're giving them a piece of paper, it means nothing to them. But if you can demonstrate that product, absolutely. And that's why I mentioned the whole idea about the artisans. They're too busy creating, but they could be using that as a catch for people rather than, oh, here's a free product of mine. Here's a pen. Well, who uses pens these days, right? So I think people are not aware of how they're presenting themselves, which can be just in itself absolutely huge to establish a connection.
Yeah, where I think a display company comes in. I'm just thinking about walking through a hall. There's all these booths up and down the aisles, and some of them you find that people have their table in front. They have a bunch of things on there. Some of them have computer screens, right? And the vendor is sitting behind the desk, right? You see this, and they're almost hidden by the screen. So it's like they're not standing, they're not engaging. There's so much that people can learn. What do you think the value is of connecting with somebody like yourself? And this is definitely begging you to brag about what people can get from you. Okay, just yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our consulting involves, the three pillars, as I said, but absolutely creating engagement. Because if you're not creating engagement, then why are you there? And that's what gives trade shows the bad name, or the business events. Um, right from the start, I talk to people about what are their future plans versus their current plans. A booth setup can be great and I can sell you the best of everything, but if it's not something that your people can put up and down easily, or if you're traveling and it's going to go in a great big giant case and you don't have the capability to do the big case and you want something smaller and more portable, I'm going to help coach right through from the very initial product that you think that you want all the way to the future. And so that's a consulting slash information gathering to help you benefit more from that product itself. As I said earlier, we talk about the mannerisms in which you portray your product and you yourself. And then, of course, the whole, what the setup is. I mean, we store things here too for our clients, and some clients take us up on that because it's really super easy because they sit there and I go, I don't want my garage full of stuff, So,
Right.
I'm like, I will have the garage full of stuff, So, yeah, our warehouse here, we're able to store and have logistics to be able to get them to the different shows. One of the other things is I help set up the actual event. So if you're there and you don't know how to put it together, certainly I help you go through it. We'll talk about the actual setup of it, what makes the most sense. And sometimes it's on the fly. We've had a client that we were at the National Women's Show, and they had set it up and they said, oh, it wasn't at the end of the day, the beginning of the next day, I saw them kind of rearrange things. And I said, what happened? And they said, well, we found out that people didn't like coming into our quote booth area. And so we thought we would close it off a little bit more. And so we did some maneuverability, moving things around. And so at the end of the day, I said, so how did that go? And they said, well, it seemed to work a little bit better, but I think I would like to a couple more changes. And what would you suggest? So we made some more changes and I suggested some more things. And then the third day I said, so how did that go? And they said, oh, love it. Absolutely love it. We sold the most, we had the best conversations, we had people sign up, and that's all part and parcel of who I am and what we do here.
Brilliant. And I think that people sometimes have an idea as trade shows, it's going to cost me money. It's going to cost me a lot of money. It's way out of my range. But it's interesting that something as simple as you getting the right banner, and speaking to somebody who understands, the visual marketing like yourself. So what would a typical banner cost, just to give people an idea as to the low end introduction? And then of course, like you're saying, you can counsel them through as they grow and as your needs develop, you can then customize things and add on to that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in particular, anybody who's with this great city gets a discount. So,
Right.
our starting retail price is usually $225 for your basic standard Chinese made banner stand. But then we have ones that go all the way up to $1,000, and you're going to sit there and go, why would I spend $1,000 on a banner stand? Well, I mean, first of all, it's American made, so you're not supporting something that's outside of our own country. But it's also lifetime warranties, which a lot of banner stands don't give. You also have swappable cartridges. So if you have multiple messages, it comes in this nice little container that you can just change out your messaging. So if you're at different shows and you have different messages based upon that industry, you can swap it out super easily. So yeah, I mean, and then you have lighted ones. So which a lot of people don't know. It was really interesting. I was talking to a client recently and they were like, I love these light up banners, but I just don't know if that makes any sense. And I sit there and go, but here's the thing. But 10 years ago, we used to have lights over top of our booths and even on our banner stands. And then people read, well, that's so ridiculous. Why do we have a light on a banner stand? But honestly, you look at all the banner stands now that are out there, if you had a light on top of it, it would automatically bring more attention to it because you're slightly different than everybody else. And then we do have banner stands that actually fully collapse upon themselves, super easy to put up and down. Comes in a little bit bigger bag because it is collapsible, but you have it literally could put it up in 3 minutes and have it fully lighted. That if you add a second one to it, you could have an 8-foot backdrop. So and it could be double-sided. I mean, there's lots of variations upon everything.
Yeah, I love it. And it's funny how people don't realize that light. You don't know why you're going over to that booth, but it's because of the lights. I'll give you just one quick example. At Christmas Fest, there was a booth that had just tons of light, and the displays were all set up, and each display had lights all over it. And of course, everybody was at that booth. Right? And the other vendors were like, oh man, these guys had everybody there. No one ever looked at my booth. I just thought, well, now you know if you keep mentioning these lights,
Yeah.
right?
Lights and sound. Yeah.
Lights and sound, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, good
Who's
point.
not attracted to lights and sound or food? But, again, I sit there and I say, people's eating something and they've come to your booth and maybe it's for a cookie, and, you sit there and you go, so what are they leaving with? You
The
know,
cookie.
the cookie, and they've gone,
That's
they've walked
right.
away, they've
They're
opened, they throw the
gone.
bag in the garbage, like it's done, it's over with. Food, it might be great as an intensive, as a gimmick to bring people in. I'm not going to say though that every booth needs to be flashy in order to have huge engagement. That's not what I'm saying at all. But if you want to drive attention to people, you have to be different. And it's how their booth is set up, and that's the strategic portion of it that we help you through.
Okay, so if you could go back to yourself, 2021, like 3 months, let's say 3 months after you took over and you took over DenMar Displays, what would you tell your earlier self?
Um, that's an interesting question. I think, you know, we're so wrapped up in our day to day that we forget to think about the future. One of the things too that I find a lot of businesses are into is like you forget to pay yourself. You're so worried about the business doing well and putting things aside for the business and putting reinvesting in the business in the early stage. Absolutely, that's all part and parcel of being an entrepreneur. But remember to take money out for you, because with the economic times and the shifts in politicals and all this extraneous stuff that you can't control, at least you can control certain aspects of your business and just be aware to take the reins and do that, not be afraid to do it. I think for me, absolutely, it would be I reinvested everything into the business and didn't take anything out. And I sit there and I go, why didn't I do that? You got to
Right.
pay yourself. You got to have some initiative. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually one of the fastest ways to fall out of love with your business is if you're never getting rewarded, you're a slave to your business and you get no benefit from it. So absolutely, I agree. Now, looking ahead, like let's say giving it 5 years. It's been 5 years with you now, right? So 5 more years in the future, what would you like to be doing with your business that you're not doing now?
In terms of products and services, or just
Yeah, just general.
just in general. Um, So, well, it was interesting because when I bought the company 5 years in, which I am at now, none of that has come to fruition. So I'm just
Okay.
going to extend that for another 5 years. Yeah, I mean, COVID obviously put a dent into our makeup and how we continue to do business. I think the general philosophy, though, is that we were a well-established business. We were a $500,000 company. I like to see us at $1 million company. I like to see us, expand our services, and bring in partners to be able to buy into it and eventually retire and have a stake in it, just that I get residual income.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really difficult to get from, from starting and then crisis, of course, COVID was a big crisis for a lot of
Yeah.
businesses,
Yeah.
and then get recovering from that.
But
But
I think that the nice thing that happened with COVID, it gave a lot of display companies an opportunity to, well, a lot of them merged, but the products themselves, really, there hadn't been any technological advancements in the trade show industry for a very long time. And we've now started to see a lot more efficient lighting, a lot more collapsible units, easier to put up and put down, so
mm,
they're not so time intensive, easier to pack away. So I think that the one nice thing about COVID was that we've seen a lot more change on that front. So what's happened for us, for a lot of our corporate clients have said, listen, we're tired of these big, huge cases stripping around. Let's find something better. And I'm like, yeah, I got something for that. Not a problem. I think also what makes us unique is, and that we've been able to pivot, is that we also buy used product and we also get donated used product. And we utilize that recycle program for charitable organizations and startup companies that don't have the funds to be able to spend in their marketing, particularly to go to events. So we're able to utilize or give them either great rates, because it depends on who's donating it and what their mandate is. But in some cases, it's complete, let's give it away. And other times it's, let's at cost kind of attitude that, who can we help in the future? And so it's a win-win. We're keeping things out of the landfill all the time, because that's one of the biggest things. I've had clients who literally said, I have 100 banner stands. And I say, hey, why do you have 100 banner stands? You do know you can swap out those graphics. And so we're one of the few companies that do that. And so love to be more of a reuse, recycle, because we could be a pretty wasteful community. And this is one way that we're able to make a footprint into the industry that's not damaging to it.
For sure. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I have to say, I'm absolutely blown away by the lit backdrops that you have. You don't realize how much of a difference it is, but when you walk down aisle by aisle and they're all these not lit, booths, and then you walk down this aisle where even just one vendor has those backdrops that are lit up. I don't believe that they're that expensive, but the point is, it makes a huge difference. It makes that one vendor stand out. So, so folks are looking.
I'll tell you a little secret. There's a new
Yeah, babe.
product out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, it's really cool. So, one of the things people have always said is, I want a banner stand. And like, we have tabletop banner stands now. So you don't need to actually have a full height tabletop. And in some cases, they are adjustable tabletops. But we have a lighted tabletop now too.
Stop it.
So yeah,
Stop it.
yeah,
Wow.
this rolls
Okay.
into the little thing. Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna have to chat about that for sure.
yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, I want to get to the rapid fire questions, but I have to thank you very much for just kind of answering those questions. I know some of them were kind of tougher questions because it is an interesting industry.
It
Right.
is.
But it is one of those industries that I don't think it's going to be taken over by AI anytime soon because people still need to have their booths and stuff. But it really matters how you present yourself at these shows to make you stand out, and that's what we're there for. So let's go rapid fire. Now listen, rapid fire questions. I ask these questions, and some folks don't. It's not as rapid as rapid fire. Pew, 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 pew. So take your time and answer them. I'm going to change it from rapid fire to question and answer.
Okay.
Thank you so much. First one. Um, you want to have an excellent steak in your city. Where do you go?
My house.
Your house. Okay. All right. Let me just put that into Google Maps right now. All right.
You
You've got one
want a
free.
restaurant? I don't eat out a lot. So, I mean, I have no idea, actually, to be honest with you.
Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
You have
Nobody
one.
makes a steak like me.
Nobody. Okay. All right. Um, you have one free hour to yourself in your city. Where do you go and what are you doing?
I go home and I sit and relax. No,
I'm getting a trend here.
work and home, work and home. Yeah, that's the trend. No, actually, there's some really great trails in the city of Guelph. We're actually known for quite a bit for the activities that we have, outdoor activities. So yeah, I personally love the lake, so I love being at cottages and just sitting by and listening to the birds and the animals and the frogs and just the water dripping. So I would probably go to Guelph Lake.
Okay, Guelph Lake. Okay. Best coffee spot to think, work, people watch. Where do you go?
Do people watch?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You don't people
Tim
watch?
Hortons.
Tim Hortons. Okay. Okay.
Oh, yeah, so here's a little funny story about our Tim Hortons in particular is we have a Tim Hortons that constantly has broken windows because for some reason people drive through them. That's not meant for the drive-through. But yeah, we have a lot we have quite a few accidents at Tim Hortons. So yeah, definitely Tim Hortons.
Fascinating. Okay. All right. Out of town friends are visiting and you want to impress them. Where do you take them in your city first? Hmm.
I think probably downtown. We've got some pretty good restaurants there. We have the river, we have like the parks, we have some interesting buildings that have been converted from mills and wood fridges. They're no longer exist, but um that have been converted into condos, but have kept the original millwork building portions of the building, and we have like a really funky train down, steam train down at downtown as well, right by the river. So, and our theater. So, yeah, I think downtown.
Okay. That sounds great. So when you need to clear your head after a long work day, where in your city helps you to do that?
My house.
Your house. Home is
Oh,
sanctuary. I get
the
it.
white sanctuary. No, I would go back. I have to say, I would go back to Guelph Lake. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
What
beautiful at any time of year. Yeah, and it does have interesting during the summer. It has a lot of people like with the little ski-doos on it, and in the winter it's the snowmobiles. So yeah, great people watching place.
Okay, so this is probably going to give me the same answer, but hidden gem alert. What's one local place that more people should know about?
Definitely not my house. I would say, ooh, depends on what it is that they want to do. Um, but I think kind of a cool restaurant is Fixed Gear, because they have those little outdoor domes that you could go into.
Ooh,
And actually, I had family from Brazil, and we actually went there. Unfortunately, it was a little too cold for our Brazilian people, but yeah, it was cool sitting out there and in the lights in the dark, and yeah,
okay.
just watching the cars go by and being protected by this little bubble. It kind of felt like spacey.
What stands out to you about Guelph that you can't really get anywhere else?
I wouldn't say that we can't get it anywhere else, but what drew me to the city of Guelph, other than the fact that I came here for school, but have never left, is just because it is like a mini Toronto. I mean, we really have everything that you could possibly want within our own city. We have great theater, we have great restaurants, we have hiking trails, we have lots of physical activity. We're big onto our history, which if anybody knows anything about the history is really quite colorful. If you watch Murdoch Mysteries, we've been in Murdoch Mysteries multiple times. Yeah, yeah, they do filming here for different shows. Yeah, it's there's always something hopping here in the city, and our artisan tours are arboretum is top notch. Lots of people get photos taken in there, lots of interesting wedding places. So yeah, I honestly I just think it's in general maybe one of the best cities around because we just have everything to offer without having to go anywhere.
What is the most romantic place in Guelph?
Definitely not my house. Oh, my husband would kill me on that. No, let's see. Most romantic. Well, depends what you consider romantic. I'm, I'm an outdoor person, and so is my husband. So I would say it would be just being outdoors.
Outdoors.
Yeah, as I said, great trails, great water. You can't go really anywhere in the city without running into a water area.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, it sounds great. So you and your family are out, heading to a park to relax, walk, have fun. Where do you go?
Probably Riverside Park.
Riverside Park.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And then if someone moved to your city tomorrow, what's the one place that you'd tell them that they have to experience?
Is it summer or winter?
Summer.
Probably lawn bowling. Why not? It's
It's a
weird and
thing.
wonderful. And right beside
Okay.
it is a great ice cream shop and tea shop. So,
What?
and you're right by the river and you can go kayaking if you really wanted to, or watch people kayaking while you're sitting and having a ice cream cone. So, yeah,
Fantastic. Wow, you make Guelph sound so great.
it
When
is
when
great.
you kind of had me at it's like a mini Toronto. I mean, who doesn't like Toronto? There's going to be a lot of people going, oh, me. But anyway, Toronto's great. Guelph is great. It's a
I
beautiful
used to live
town.
in Toronto. I can ditch it as much as I want.
That's right. Well, listen, I want to thank you for joining me today for the first 1000 day podcast. I really appreciate the information that you're sharing. As you know, small businesses are business owners, entrepreneurs are constantly having challenges and seeking best ways to overcome those challenges. And I'm thankful that you're able to share with us some of your experience.
Hopefully they get
So,
something out of it.
sorry,
Hopefully they get something out of it.
for
And
sure, for
thank you
sure.
for having me.
I really want them to contact you as well because I mean you're such a wealth of information for me personally, and I've seen other people and I've heard from other people that they've been able to get a lot of information from you. So how do they reach you?
Our website, denmardisplays.com, and fill in a request form for us to connect, or certainly on LinkedIn. We're on all the social medias as well, or just by calling 519-821-8508.
Fantastic.
I said
Thank
it so
you.
fast I had to think of the numbers.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. That's great. So thank you again, Heather Sanderson from DenMar Displays, and I look forward to seeing you out there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take care.